Dave Palumbo here with an RX Muscle news update. The New York Pro, which took place in Tampa, Florida, is now in the history books, and Iain Valliere is the new champion. Not only did he win the men's open, he will be now qualified to compete at the Mr. Olympia contest come December. Congratulations to Iain. Iain had a little bit of trouble against Hunter Labrada a few weeks ago at the actual Tampa Pro that was in Tampa. I know it's confusing nowadays in these COVID times, but he looked a little off. He wasn't peaked out properly. By his own admission on the TV show where I interviewed him, he said that, he had some problems in terms of, anxiety and, just things didn't go right for that show. And, it seemed like he rectified some of them here, maybe not all of them. If we look at Iain here, we see a huge structured, bodybuilder with all the tool set to compete very successfully in that top 5 at the Mr. Olympia competition. He's got a lot of muscle. He's got a lot of conditioning. It seemed like he was a little flat here. He didn't, once again, his tan was better here. It wasn't the best it can be. And I think he still needs to work on that. Also, I think that Iain didn't look happy to be here. I don't know. I haven't seen a smile on his face in the last 2 shows. And I don't see any reason why. I mean, if you're winning a show, you should be gleaming from that side of your mouth to the side of your mouth, because I mean that's like the greatest thing. We work so hard for this thing, and then when it comes to fruition, sometimes we can't enjoy the fruits of our labor. But Iain obviously winning a controversial, I would say, show in the sense that there was a lot of maneuvering from prejudging the finals. If you take a look and we look at the prejudging call-outs, it was a 7-man call-out, and the judges just didn't seem like they knew what they wanted to do with that call-out. And I think that was a little disturbing to fans in a sense, because the fans want to see definitiveness. They want to see like, hey, this is what's going on, and the judges have it down. But the truth is that sometimes when everyone's not 100%, it's very difficult for the judges to decide, who's going to go where. After prejudging, a lot of the people watching the live stream, which doesn't mean anything, obviously you got to be there in person, we're saying Justin Rodriguez looked great. I heard Hassan Mostafa looked great. Jon Delarosa looked great. And it seemed like after prejudging, the judges were favoring Iain Valliere and Jon Delarosa, that they were in the middle, of the last call out. And that's something that, usually indicates that these guys are going to beat 1-2. But the problem was that there was a lot of guys and a lot of people and, industry experts, I call them, myself included, who watched the live stream and felt that, Hassan Mostafa was getting overlooked here. Here's a guy who was, wasn't even in the top 4 last call out. And here's a guy who looked like he could have won the show. Turns out he moved up in the placings, okay, when it was all said and done, and wind up placing 4th. But, could he have been higher? Possibly. Let's take a look and break down this lineup a little bit, because, it was controversial. And the reason is because not everyone was 100%. We like to say, I like to say conditioning wins shows, but sometimes it doesn't, if people are not all perfect. And I think that's important to understand. Now let's look at 2nd place finisher, Justin Rodriguez, who reminds me of Victor Martinez when he was just starting out. He even hits his front double bicep with that little twist to the waist that Victor does. And I know he's Dominican. I believe he's Dominican as well. So, you get this whole Victor Martinez flow look. And what the funny thing is, Victor's legs were never his strongest body part. He had good legs, but they were not great legs. And Justin, same thing. He doesn't have bad legs. He just doesn't have the level of I guess you could say, leg mass that he has in that upper body. I mean, he is arguably the most conditioned guy in the show. And if we go by the, I guess by the moniker or the theory that conditioning wins shows, assuming you have all the other tools to go with it, Justin should have been the champion, right? I mean, is Iain Valliere bigger? Does he have more muscle? Yes, but he was flat and he wasn't as crisp as Justin. I think what hurt Justin was he didn't get a fair look at prejudging. And even though he came back and on the scorecards, he placed very high, and he could potentially won this thing. I think he was too far behind point-wise after prejudging. So he was a victim of maybe just being overlooked is really what it amounts to. I'm glad that the judges rejudged the finals, because when they came back, usually we go right to routines, and what they did first is they rejudged it was almost like they did a second prejudging. And that was good because, it kind of changed around a lot of placings. And I think it got a few things that were not right. And that's, look, at the end of the day, you want to have the right placings with the right guys. So, but, it is what it is, and sometimes, people do get overlooked, and that happens. Jon Delarosa, a lot of people thought could have won this thing after prejudging, especially the way the judges had lined them up on stage. I think Jon probably went back to his hotel room saying, I won this thing as well. I'm sure a lot of people were telling him that. And Jon looked good. I mean, Jon is one of these bodybuilders, and I said this on my preview, he has no gaps in his physique. And because he has no gaps in his physique, everything flows real nice, and you really can't say, hey, that's a bad body part, that's a great body part, because it just flows. And that's what bodybuilding is about. It's about harmony and symmetry of the body parts. I think his conditioning is really good here, too. I think he's a little flat, and he's losing some of the pop to his physique, especially from behind. So there's no body fat on him. I mean, I can tell that because I can see his face. And I know Jon's got like a round face in the offseason. When he's in shape, his face looks chiseled, and he's got that chiseled look. So I think he did his homework here. I think he came in a little flat. Maybe he needed to eat a little bit more or stay a little more hydrated. I don't know. But, he could have easily have won this show had he been a little fuller, maybe. And that's unfortunate. You hate to say that, and because athletes don't want to hear that, but that's the case. I think his placing here was probably about right. Maybe, and I probably could have swapped him out, maybe even with Hassan Mostafa, to be honest with you, because Hassan has got some freaky body parts, and we're going to talk about him now. I mean, here's a guy who last year made an impression on a lot of people, and people were saying, hey, this guy is going to be very, very dangerous moving forward. And you know what? He proved us all right. Here he is. I mean, the guy's got the best quads in bodybuilding. I mean, there's no – you think Rami's got quads? Rami's got big quads, but he doesn't have the separation in his quads that Hassan Mostafa has got. The feathering in the vastus muscles, the separation in the sartorius muscle. He's got huge arms. He's got a great back. I mean, he really is not missing anything. Could he have been a little tighter? Yes. And I think that is why he didn't win this show. Had Hassan Mostafa been 100% conditioning-wise and dry, no one would have beat him. I think that this guy's going to be very dangerous at the Olympia if he makes it there. I know I believe he's competing next week in California at the Cal Pro. If he can qualify for the Olympia and win that, I think this guy is super dangerous at the Olympia level, because he's got Olympia level musculature. He's just got to bring that dry hard conditioning where you're going to see crazy separation in his muscles. And when you see the deceptive thing is you see his quads flex down. He's got the cross-traded quads. He probably has those in the off season. That's just separation that's naturally in the muscle. We want to see grainy conditioning, for mine. And he's right there. He's a couple pounds off. So I think this is a great showing for him. I think that, I think his placing was kind of right. I probably could have flip-flopped him maybe with Jon. But, Jon's got, a nice physique as well. But I think that, I think they were pretty evenly matched conditioning-wise, these guys. So I probably would have liked to seen Hassan one place higher in this lineup. But I think that he's going to be a dangerous guy moving forward. He might be the most dangerous guy to enter that realm of what I call the elite pro, where when we get to the Olympia level, watch out for this guy. He's going to do some serious damage. And that there's not many guys like that. There's not everyone out there who can pull that off, but he certainly can. Let's talk about Max Charles, who I know he's working with Milos now, brought a really good look to the stage. Probably the tightest we've seen him in a long time. His legs, to me, didn't look too bad. Usually they look small. They weren't. They were full. And I'm sure Milos's protocols probably helped that a lot. But Max was in shape, too, and I think that's the main thing here. Once again, could Max have been a place higher or so? Maybe. But I think top 5 was the right call. It was a tough lineup. It was a deep lineup. There was a lot of good guys in the lineup. And I know Max probably wanted to be higher, and I know Milos wanted him to be higher. And I'm sure I'll get Milos on the show, and we'll talk about that. But I think this is a good showing for Max. I think that if he keeps hitting a couple shows, I think we'll see him on an Olympia stage. It's weird times because there's very few shows. So what's happening is we're seeing deeper lineups at the shows that we're getting. So because when there was a lot more qualifiers, it was spread out more. It was a little easier to win shows. Now you're going to have a much more competitive type of situation. Maybe Max should go to, I don't know if he can fly to Europe. I don't know what the quarantine situation is. Maybe he should go there and compete at that Alicante, Spain show where there's a top three, going to the Olympia. So it's a possibility. But I think Max should be commended for a lot of hard work, and Milos, good job with Max. You definitely brought a different look than we've seen from Max in quite a while, and I think he's got to be pretty happy about that. Patrick Moore finishing next in the sixth position. Here's a guy we were saying was the next coming of Ronnie Coleman. At the Arnold, he proved that he could get in shape for sure, but he was a little on the smaller side. I think that he suffered here as well. His conditioning was, you couldn't say anything better. His conditioning was spectacular. Standing alone, he looks like he's the winner. When you put him next to guys, you see that he still needs to add more size. Was it a mistake to compete again and rather than wait till the following year? Probably. I would have liked to see Patrick continue to grow all year round and then diet down maybe for the Arnold Classic in 2021 or maybe even the New York Pro in the spring of 2021. I think it was a mistake to diet down again and kind of lose, part of the year. But look, he knows what he's doing, him and Chris Aceto. This is a good look. I think we're going to see him in California next week, and then he's going to shut it down. So we'll see, where that takes him. Who knows? Maybe he'll come out with a victory and he'll wind up on an Olympia stage. You never know. Antoine Vaillant coming back from a torn bicep injury in 2019. I think this is a good comeback for him. I think what happens is people are very deceived. They see these insane pictures he puts on his Instagram. And I think in the offseason, he has a lot of fullness and hydration to his muscle and roundness. I think he's too over depleted here. This is just my opinion. I haven't talked to him at all or anything like that. I think that he needs to fill up more. He needs to be better hydrated. He needs probably to eat a little junk food because his conditioning is really good. He just lost some of his wow, and he's got a lot of wow. If you look at his pictures that he posts in the weeks leading up to this show, I was super impressed what I saw. And then when I saw him here, I felt like he was like definitely over depleted. So Antoine, have a few McDonald's cheeseburgers on me, and I think that's going to solve your problem. And don't stop drinking. Before I wrap this up, and this is just going to be a quick update, of course, I want to talk about Phil Klahar. He's a guy I work with. I was very impressed with what we brought to Tampa a couple weeks ago. He placed fourth there in the Open in that show that Hunter Labrada won, and Iain Valliere was second. Phil brought in a much fuller and harder look here. He was bigger. I thought he was better. I was shocked that he was not in that first call out. It really was. I know he was very upset about it, but look, I explained to him, look, this is the way bodybuilding works. He's still not a known guy. He's going to be known now because this was a great look that he brought to the stage. He worked so hard for this and he looked great. And I think that the next show, which I believe we're going to be doing, is Chicago, which takes place in Atlanta, is going to be a big show for Phil. I think this was a tough lineup. I think that, he might have gotten like a little overlooked, like I said, but in Chicago, which is in Atlanta, I think we're going to see a Phil Klahar really come into his own. So keep up your chin, champ, and we'll see you back on stage. And we're going to get him on RX Muscle probably this coming week for a little interview too, just to kind of give people an update on what's going on in his life and, his bodybuilding journey, which is a little unconventional because he got started at a much later age. And I think that people are going to really enjoy that story. So that's the pretty much the New York Pro update. Once again, congratulations to Ian Valliere for winning the show, qualifying for the Olympia. Great lineup. I'm glad all these guys were able to make it out for the show here. And I'd like to say in New York, in Tampa, but for the New York Pro, it's still the same title. Ian's got that beautiful ring to show it for his efforts. And we'll see him on an Olympia stage. I hope he can get his act together, and I hope he can focus his mind a little bit more and enjoy the process, because that's what it's after all, guys. At the end of the day, you got to enjoy the journey. I'm Dave Palumbo with an RX Muscle News Update.